Welcome, everyone, to today's crucial discussion. We are addressing a highly debated question. Should the sale and use of all tobacco and vaping products be completely prohibited? This is a topic that evokes strong opinions and has significant implications for public health, personal freedom, and our economy. Joining us today are two distinguished speakers. Dr. Eleanor Vance, a public health advocate, will argue in favor of a complete prohibition, and Mr. Julian Croft, a proponent of individual liberties and market-based solutions, will argue against such a ban. The debate will begin with opening statements from each speaker, followed by rebuttals and argument development. We will then have a brief cross-examination session, and finally, closing statements. The contentiousness of this issue cannot be overstated, and we aim for a comprehensive exploration of the arguments. Let us begin.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. The question before us is not merely one of preference, but of profound public health necessity. I stand firmly for the complete prohibition of all tobacco and vaping products, as it is the only conscionable path forward to protect our citizens. The scientific evidence is irrefutable. Tobacco use is a leading cause of preventable death globally, responsible for a horrifying array of cancers, debilitating respiratory diseases like emphysema and chronic bronchitis, and severe cardiovascular issues, including heart attacks and strokes. These are not abstract statistics. They represent immense suffering and premature loss of life. Furthermore, nicotine, the core component in both traditional tobacco and many vaping products, is one of the most addictive substances known. This addiction ensnares millions, robbing them of their health and autonomy, often starting in adolescence when individuals are most vulnerable. The rise of vaping, initially marketed by some as a safer alternative, has unfortunately created a new generation addicted to nicotine, often unaware of the potential long-term lung damage and other health risks associated with inhaling heated chemicals. The societal costs are staggering. We bear an enormous healthcare burden, treating diseases directly caused by these products, a burden that falls on all taxpayers. Productivity is lost due to illness and premature death, impacting our economic strength. Some argue that current regulations, age restrictions, warning labels, advertising bans are sufficient. I contend they are woefully inadequate. Despite these measures, millions continue to smoke and vape, and youth initiation remains a critical problem. Warning labels are often ignored, and age restrictions are too easily circumvented. Therefore, we face a moral imperative. Just as we prohibit other substances that cause widespread harm, we must act decisively to eliminate the scourge of tobacco and vaping products from our society. This is about safeguarding the health and future of our communities, especially our children, from an industry that profits from addiction and disease. A complete prohibition is not an extreme measure. It is a rational and compassionate response to a public health crisis.
Thank you. While I acknowledge Dr. Vance's concerns for public health, her proposed solution of complete prohibition is, in my view, a drastic overreach that tramples upon fundamental principles of personal liberty and is likely to create more problems than it solves. The core of my argument rests on individual autonomy. In a free society, adults should have the right to make informed choices about their own lives and what they consume, even if those choices involve certain risks. It is not the role of the state to act as an overly paternalistic guardian, dictating every aspect of personal behavior, especially for products whose risks are well documented and understood by consumers. If an adult, fully aware of the potential health consequences, chooses to smoke or vape, that is their prerogative. Prohibition, history has repeatedly shown us, does not eliminate demand, it merely drives it underground. A ban on tobacco and vaping products would inevitably lead to the rise of a dangerous black market. This illicit market would be entirely unregulated, meaning products could be far more hazardous, potentially adulterated with unknown and harmful substances, and sold without any quality control or age verification. Furthermore, a black market fuels criminal enterprises, leading to increased crime rates and diverting law enforcement resources from other pressing issues. Consider the economic repercussions. A complete ban would result in significant job losses across various sectors: agriculture, manufacturing, retail, and distribution. Governments would also lose substantial tax revenue currently generated from legal sales, revenue that often funds public services, including healthcare. While the health arguments are valid, we must ask if prohibition is the most effective or appropriate response. I believe that a combination of robust education, comprehensive harm reduction strategies, and stricter, targeted regulations are more sensible and ultimately more effective approaches. We should focus on preventing youth uptake, providing support for those who wish to quit, and ensuring that adult consumers have access to accurate information and potentially less harmful alternatives if they choose to use nicotine products. Outright prohibition is a blunt instrument that disregards individual rights and risks severe, negative, unintended consequences for society. Dr. Vance's assertion that strong enforcement can effectively eliminate a black market for products as widely used as tobacco and, increasingly, vapes seems overly optimistic, with all due respect. History, particularly the era of alcohol prohibition in the United States, provides a stark warning. When demand persists, supply will find a way, often with increased criminality and more dangerous products. The resources required for such enforcement would be colossal, and likely still insufficient to truly eradicate an underground trade. Furthermore, I must question the fundamental premise of how far the state should intervene to protect individuals from themselves. If we prohibit tobacco based on health risks, where do we draw the line? Should we ban sugary drinks, fast food, or extreme sports, all of which carry health risks? The principle of personal responsibility, alongside education about risks, should be paramount for adults. Dr. Vance also tends to paint the economic impact as a secondary concern, but for many communities and small business owners, the loss of legal tobacco and vape sales would be devastating. These are livelihoods, not just abstract figures on a balance sheet. The tax revenue lost would also need to be recouped elsewhere, potentially through higher taxes on other goods or services. Crucially, Dr. Vance's argument often conflates traditional combustible tobacco with vaping products. While no one claims vaping is entirely without risk, major public health bodies in some countries acknowledge that regulated vaping products are substantially less harmful than smoking and can be an effective tool for smokers looking to quit cigarettes. A blanket prohibition that treats these distinct categories identically would eliminate a potentially life-saving harm reduction pathway for millions of current smokers. Instead of this all-or-nothing approach, we should be implementing far stricter regulations on marketing and sales, especially to prevent youth access, while simultaneously investing heavily in proven cessation programs and honest public awareness campaigns that accurately convey the relative risks of different nicotine products. This nuanced strategy respects adult choice while aggressively targeting public health harms, particularly among the young.
Thank you both for those detailed rebuttals. We'll now move to a brief cross-examination. Dr. Vance, Mr. Croft has forcefully raised the concern of a thriving black market, potentially leading to more dangerous products and increased crime. How would a prohibition realistically be enforced to prevent this? And what specific measures give you confidence that it wouldn't simply create a new set of intractable problems?
That's a critical question, Ms. Chen. Enforcement would indeed be a multifaceted challenge, but not an insurmountable one. Firstly, it would require a significant, sustained investment in customs and border protection to intercept illicit imports, and dedicated law enforcement units to tackle domestic illegal production and distribution networks. This isn't dissimilar to efforts against other illegal substances, but the focus would be uniquely on a product that was once legal and widespread. Secondly, a crucial component would be robust public health campaigns running in parallel, not just warning against the dangers of illicit products, but also continually reinforcing the reasons for the prohibition and offering extensive support for cessation to reduce overall demand. My confidence stems from the understanding that while a black market might initially emerge, its appeal and viability would diminish over time as social norms shift. and demand decreases through comprehensive cessation support and generational change. The key difference from, say, alcohol prohibition is the undeniable and severe direct harm of tobacco, which provides a stronger public consensus for eradication once the initial hurdles are overcome. It's about a long-term vision for public health.
Thank you, Dr. Vance. Mr. Croft. Dr. Vance argues that the health costs and societal burden from tobacco and vaping are simply too high to ignore, suggesting current measures are insufficient. If not prohibition, what specific enhanced measures would you advocate that go significantly beyond current regulations to address these severe health impacts, especially concerning the alarming rates of youth vaping and continued smoking among adults?
Certainly, Ms. Chen. My approach would be aggressive but targeted, focusing on harm reduction and prevention without resorting to the blunt instrument of prohibition. Firstly, for youth prevention, I advocate for a complete ban on all flavored vaping products, except perhaps tobacco flavor, as flavors are undeniably a primary driver of youth uptake. This should be coupled with drastically stricter marketing regulations, akin to those for tobacco, preventing any advertising that could reach or appeal to minors, including on social media. Secondly, we need to significantly raise the age of purchase for all tobacco and vaping products to 21 or even 25 nationwide, with severe penalties for retailers who violate these laws. Thirdly, for adult smokers, we must massively increase funding and accessibility for evidence-based cessation services, nicotine replacement therapies, counseling, and support groups, making them free or very low cost. Simultaneously, we need a government-led public information campaign that honestly communicates the relative risks, acknowledging that regulated vaping is a less harmful alternative for adult smokers who cannot or will not quit nicotine entirely, while strongly discouraging non-smokers and youth from starting. This combination of dramatically restricting appeal and access for youth, while robustly supporting adult cessation and informed harm reduction, is a far more practical and freedom-respecting path.
In closing, the evidence remains stark and deeply concerning. Tobacco and vaping products are engineered for addiction and are directly responsible for immense suffering and premature death on a scale that dwarfs many other public health challenges. While discussions of personal liberty and economic impacts are relevant, they must be weighed against this devastating and undeniable toll on human health and life. Current regulatory frameworks, though well-intentioned, have proven insufficient to protect our citizens, particularly the young, from the predatory tactics of these industries. We have a societal obligation to protect public health, and in this instance, that obligation calls for bold, decisive action. Prohibition is not about limiting freedom arbitrarily. It is about freeing future generations from the chains of nicotine addiction and the catastrophic health consequences that follow. It is a moral imperative for a healthier society.
To conclude, while the health concerns associated with smoking are undeniable, and the rise in youth vaping is a serious issue requiring strong action, a complete prohibition of all tobacco and vaping products is an extreme, counterproductive, and illiberal response. Such a ban would infringe upon adult autonomy, inevitably spawn a dangerous and uncontrollable black market, and inflict significant economic damage. History teaches us that prohibitionist policies often fail, creating more complex problems than they solve. The more pragmatic and effective path lies in smarter, stricter regulation, aggressive youth prevention measures, robust support for cessation, and honest education about harm reduction for adults who choose to use nicotine. Let us not opt for a solution that curtails freedom and creates new dangers, but instead commit to targeted strategies that genuinely protect public health while respecting individual choice.
Thank you, Dr. Vance and Mr. Croft, for your articulate and impassioned arguments on this complex issue. We've heard compelling points advocating for prohibition as a public health necessity, and equally strong arguments against it, citing concerns for personal liberty and unintended negative consequences. This debate highlights the profound ethical, social, and practical considerations involved. We encourage our audience to reflect carefully on the perspectives shared today. Thank you for joining us.